We're here with Paul Harris of Colombia Gold Letter. Paul is an expert on gold mining and metals mining, not just in Colombia, but in other areas. And we want to get caught up on some recent happenings and get Paul's insight. So, Paul, first, thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Good morning.
Good morning. We're here at the Hotel San Fernando Plaza. This is going to be the site of an upcoming event for the industry. What's the event called?
The Colombia Gold Symposium 2017.
Great. And for those in the industry, investors, operators, interested parties, if they want to find out about it, how could they? I think you have a website for that.
That's right. The website is colombiagold.co.
Great, thanks. And let's get started and talk about it. It's been a busy week or month here. We had a recent tragedy Saturday up in Buritica. We both visited there. It was my first time. I'm sure you've been there several times. And at first I was a little bit confused. I didn't understand what happened. I know that Continental Gold had recently started to drill again, and my first thought, just seeing the headlines, was that it had something to do with that, but I guess luckily it doesn't. What do you know so far about this recent explosion in Buritica?
Okay, you're right. It's got nothing to do with Continental Gold's exploration program. Let's be very clear on that. As you may recall, a few years ago there was an invasion by illegal miners in the Buritica area, and in 2016 the government went in and cleared most of those out. But there were still a few holdouts for various reasons. One is that people just came back, and two, some managed to argue in the courts that they could function there economically and legally, and the courts listened to some of those people and said, okay, you can stay. What happened was that Continental Security Team, as part of their agreement with the government following the eviction of illegal miners, were doing their rounds, making sure everything's okay, keeping an eye on things, and they found that one of the closed mines, there were people in there actively mining, so they went in to investigate. And from what I've picked up from news reports and speaking with the company, is that people that were in the mine illegally reacted aggressively against their presence, set off some dynamite charges, and also, according to news reports, began burning tyres, created smoke to, I guess, so that they could escape. So the people that were mining there illegally escaped, but unfortunately the gases that were a product from the burning tyres and the explosion asphyxiated 6 of the security team.
Well, tragic. I saw that Continental, in their release, has asked the government for an investigation, and hopefully something will come of that. Now, speaking of Continental, they recently have announced that they've started to drill again. I know not a whole lot about mining, and that's why I want to talk to you. What I know that they have a mine there that's active, that's still in the development phases. What does that mean exactly for a layman, for somebody? I would think that they're drilling constantly, but I guess that's not how it works.
Okay, so Continental has discovered a deposit. They've put together a mine plan and a feasibility study for that mine plan, and they've obtained all the permits from the government to develop that mine. So that's still the main plan. But whilst they sort of ramp up for the mine development, they've got a big land package. So they're now started to focus again on exploration with the aim of finding more gold. The initial resource they've got is, we're talking several millions of ounces, and they think there's the potential on their property package to find several more million ounces. And so now that all the things are in place to build the Buritica mine, they can now turn their attention again to exploring and trying to find more gold. So that's the drill program that was recently announced, and that now I think they've got 2 or 3 drills turning on the project now. Exciting.
Continental seems to have very friendly relations with the local town there, Buritica, in Antioquia. But we've seen other mining companies have more complex and more complicated relationships. We have perhaps we're entering into a new phase. You've written about this in your own publication, these referendums. And referendums, usually people say, well, that's a good thing that people have a right to determine, but there are other issues there, and there are complexities there. It's not so cut and dry necessarily. Is this a new trend that we're going to see in Colombia? Is it isolated? What are the ramifications, and what response would we expect to see in the future from these mining operations?
That's a very complex and almost complicated question to answer, Lauren, and I think communities want their voice to be heard, and that's not just the case in Colombia, but throughout the continent, throughout the world. Communities want their voice to be heard, and oftentimes the processes that government establishes don't allow for that, and that's not just for mining. That affects infrastructure projects, energy projects, large-scale projects of any nature. So here in Colombia, there's been a disarticulation between sort of national government and local government, and the courts have endorsed the mechanism of the popular vote for communities to express their view on certain things. Mining is one of those. Unfortunately, those kind of votes, those kind of interventions tend to be boiled down to a binary question to which the community is asked to give a yes or no answer. And many things are far more multifaceted than a yes or no answer. So saying yes to mining or no to mining has a lot of consequences beyond the immediately obvious, such as future employment, future economic resources, or social growth and development. People are often, and they're not properly aware of all the issues. They're not really aware of what they're being asked to vote for or against.
I see. Yeah, that's certainly. We've seen issues get hijacked, and it's about one thing, and it gets taken over by something else. I've seen that happen so many times in local government. It happens in national government.
Unfortunately, the votes in Colombia about mining are effectively put forward as do you want life or do you want death? And obviously, people are going to vote for life, but mining isn't a death scenario. Mining's very much, I would argue, a very positive, life-affirming scenario that gives people opportunity, gives regions opportunity for economic growth and development. Obviously, if it's managed well at a social, economic, and environmental level.
Right, it's necessary. We're not, and probably will never be, at a place where mining of some types of resources won't be essential, and it can be done right. We've seen success stories both here and abroad, and I would imagine that those companies would do well to be very proactive in their relationships with the local communities.
Absolutely. You have to lay out from an early stage what the potential benefit, and by that I mean growth and development benefit, is for the local community. And of course, we're in Colombia, where the government has a lot of budgetary constraints and calls and demands. It's got a peace process to play for. It's got all the demobilized fighters to pay for. It's got all the resettlement to pay for. So Colombia can't really afford to turn its nose up at the wealth of resources it has at its disposal.
Right, and again, it's also a diversification. It's still a commodity, but it's a diversification away from the petrochemicals that the country's relied on in the past, like petroleum and coal. Another mining company based in Canada, active here in Colombia, Ecooro. They seem to have had a shakeup of some type. Their CEO has resigned completely from the board and everything. Is there any insight or inside baseball on what we know about those developments?
Well, yeah, I would say that's not anything to be alarmed about, because of the status that Ecuador is in its life cycle or development. My understanding is the executive team were either not being paid or much reduced salaries, and so the former CEO is basically taking a position with another mining company where he will be getting sort of full pay and actually be able to do some mining and exploration work, which is something Ecuador hasn't been in a position to do for quite a long period of time.
Understood. So once again, I want to thank you for taking the time out with us now, as always, and again, also a thanks for the Hotel San Fernando Plaza, one of the nicest hotels here in Medellin. And I also would like for readers or viewers that are interested in the mining, especially gold mining. Once again, what is the link to your own publication and to your upcoming event?
Well, the event is the Colombia Gold Symposium. The website is colombiagold.co. It's a 2-day event. We're going to have presentations from over 15 companies with mining, exploration and development projects, including Continental. We've also got a very sort of innovative copper session and looking at some good innovations for the future.
Great. That's another thing. Copper. I always think of Chile when I think of copper, but there are active copper mines here in Colombia as well. And so I wasn't at the last event, but I was looking through your kind of post-event coverage, and it was very impressive. And I'm sure that you'll build on that success, and it'll be a good event, and hopefully we'll cover it as well. So thank you again.
Thank you, Lauren.